All right, we're back for our second hour. We're going to focus on programming your radio this time and all the different versions of radios that you have. Understand there is no right or wrong way. Well, there are some wrong ways. There's not one way of programming your radio. It may be up to your personal taste. I'll share with you my method, and if it's worthwhile to you, please use it. All right, one of the things to keep in mind, what are the differences in programming your radio if you're just using an FM repeater that we've used for years, or a D-Star repeater? There are a lot of similarities. First, the mode is going to be FM, or comparatively on the right side, DV. Frequency, you've got to put that in. You've got to put it in the offset. And at this point, you start to differ. You either put in, most repeaters are operating tone now, either tone access or tone squelch. You might need to put that in and tone frequency. You don't have to do that for D-Star. Now, I'm going to tell you the very basics. If you've got one of the newer model radios, you get to skip a lot of this because the later generation radios have made it a little easier. But I'm going to go through the basics so you understand what's happening, say, under the hood, I'll call it. There are a couple of parameters, 3 specifically, that you will put in or is put in for you. One is called the UR field. And what I'm saying there is UR. And then you'll hear me refer to repeat 1 and repeat 2. All right, here's what those mean. My call is your own call sign. You'll program that once in your radio. Question came up earlier, can you put multiple call signs in there? Yes, you can. And then you select which one is sent. My call is very important because that says who you are to not only the system but reflectors, to other users, and prevents anonymous kerchunkers from remaining anonymous. Your call is transmit, or my call is transmit, every time you key the mic. And it shows up on everyone else's radio. So that's a nice feature. You are, or your call, meaning you are. Where do I want to go? And you'll see some examples of this as we go through this. Repeat 1. This is the repeater and module that I am transmitting into, my local repeater. So it will be a repeater and module. So in this case, I put in KJ4GGV space C, meaning that is KJ4GGV. It's in Pembroke, Georgia. Bit of trivia for you. And it is the 2-meter module being C. We'll go through the differences there. Repeat 2. Where do I want my transmission to go? Now, it's important that you put something in here usually, because even though you may be operating locally, you want your signal being sent to the gateway so that someone on a DV dongle, a DVAP, a DV4 Mini, DV Mega can hear you. It's got to be sent to the gateway. So typically you'll put the call sign of your repeater, same thing, and put a G in the 8th position. We'll go through some examples that might make a little more sense. Your normal format is that the call sign can have, of course, different lengths. It's left justified, meaning you're starting from the left side. So if it's a 1x2, W4GR, if it's a 1x3, W4ABC, if it's a 2x3, WB4QDX, you start on the left side. That'll get you out to up to 6 positions. And then the module, or the one you're wanting to come out on or go into, C is always 2 meters, B is UHF, 440, 70 centimeters, and A is 1.2. Now, the module is always in the 8th position. So if I've got a 1x2 call, I'm using up 4 spaces. I'll put in space, 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 and then the module. So just remember, call sign starts at the left, whether it's 1 by 2 or 2 by 3, and then the letter designating the module goes in the 8th position. Make sure you have the right number of spaces in there. There are some examples of different length calls, and the star is not, or the little square is not a symbol, that's a space. You won't actually see that, but that's just a space. All right? Yes? Gee, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, you could have a 7-letter call sign, but not an 8-character call sign. Remember, this is only going to come into play, well, it will come into play if you're on that repeater or if it goes in the UR field. So I'm not sure how you would handle that with a very long call like that. If you catch a VE station on, you might ask, because they'd probably be the ones running into that. That's a very good question. Gee, I thought I'd heard all the questions. That's a good one. All right, here's your basic QSO. Now, this is what you're putting in if you've got a 91, a 92, a 2820, 800, 880. You're going to program this in these fields. My call, you program that in one time, you don't need to change it. UR. The main thing you're wanting to just talk is put CQ, CQ, CQ in that field. So what repeater am I going into in this example? KJ4 GGV, the 2-meter module, C. And then I put same thing with a G in repeat 2. Now, remember, I'm just filling out these fields right now, and I'm going to give you some examples. If I want to link to a repeater, I'm going to change what's in the UR field. So if I want to link, here's where the things kind of change a little bit. I'm going to put in the call sign of the repeater, and I gave some examples of different length calls, and I want to put AL, CL, or BL in there if I want to link to a repeater. So I'm going to link my local repeater directly to another repeater. That's what I would put in the UR field. Everything else stayed the same, right? All right, let's change that. You're probably going to want to link to a reflector, not another repeater. So I would put in the UR field, again, that's all it changed, the UR field. In this case, I'm putting a D plus reflector in, REF002A, and the L is in there for linking. Now, if I wanted to go to a DCS, I would just start that DCS 005, or I would put in, either the any of the different flavors of reflectors. Yes. There are different. I don't really know how to say this. The original reflectors were D plus reflectors, and they're designated REF 001 through now 77. Like all hams, someone thinks they can do it better or wants to do it differently. So there were other groups that came up with their own type of reflectors. Some examples of these are the DCS, what's the other one? XRF, X reflectors. So they are just different types of reflectors. Now, if you are on a repeater that's using only the Icom gateway software and using D+, you cannot get to those other XRF or DCS reflectors? It's a good question. Try it. Try it and see. The majority of the repeaters that are running IRC DDB can get to all three flavors. And I call them flavors because it's just different ones. If you go to dstarinfo.com, I'm going to refer to that website a lot. Yes, I helped do that site, so it's not a commercial endorsement, but it's a good source for D-Star information. And you look under repeaters, it will tell you, and you look up a repeater, it will tell you whether it's US root or IRC DDB. And that's a very accurate list. Not 100% accurate, but very accurate. So that's a good way to know. Yes?
I have something to add. I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but with these test reflectors, I know now you need a number to get on those, and something to do with the DMR network.
Okay, yeah. You need to, for those DCS reflectors, and this is, we'll go over some of this in the third hour because there's a lot of devices now that will operate both D-Star, DMR, Fusion, DMR Plus. You'll need to go out to the DMR mark, dmr-marc.net, I think it is, and register for a DMR ID. That has nothing to do with D-Star, with the exception of you need that to get on the DCS reflectors. You have to put in your DMR ID. It's just part of the evolving world of multiple modes, multiple digital modes. Good comment.
Will you eventually put that DMR ID in?
You do not use it in your radio, in your D-Star radio. That is only for registering and using one of the, well, like I know you need it for the DV4 Mini. You have to put that in there when you're configuring it, whether you're going to do D-Star, DMR, or Fusion, or Brandmeister, any of those. You need that DMR ID, but that's the only place you'll need it in, is for configuring one of these devices, not for your radio. All right, unlinking. Originally, you had to put the whole call sign in, and then in space of AL or something like that, you would then use a letter U. You can simply just put a U in the 8th position, and whatever you're linked to will unlink. Again, note, that's the only thing changed, what's in the UR field. We'll pull this together here in a second. Memory management, this is the topic I call it. Depending on the type of radio you have, you're probably going to do this a little differently. The earlier generation of radios have standard memories that you'll use for both FM and DV, D-Star. And I'll show you how I set mine up, and if that works for you, fine. Method 2, once you had, I think the 880 was the first radio, no, 2820 had that as well, some UR memories that you could select those to put what's in the UR field. So you'd have, the problem with that was you were limited to, I think, 60 that you could put in there, so you couldn't put every reflector combination or every repeater, whatever in there, but you could put your favorites. And that's what you would select then to put in the UR field. Now, if you are in the, if you are an owner of one of the newer generation of radios, you can still use this method with standard memories. But the capability of using what's called DR mode was added, which greatly simplifies all of the programming. We're going to go through all the methods here. When I had my 2820, my 91, my 92 AD, here's what I did. I set up, you've got hundreds of memories, right? For all my local repeaters, I would set up a block of 10 memories. And I would store each one of those commands in one of those memories. So here I'm set up, as you can see, for KI4SBA-C. All of these are the same. The only thing that changes is what's in the UR field. So what I would do is, if I just wanted to talk, I would select memory 1. If I wanted to link to Reflector 30 Charlie, I would select memory 9, key the radio. It issues the link command, and I'd go back to memory 1. And I would have some of my favorite reflectors in there. I would also have the echo command, the unlink, and the info command that I could bring up. Question came up earlier. If you're using the REF, the D+ reflectors, you have to unlink before you can link somewhere else. I don't think you have to do that with DCS. I think you can just issue a link command directly to go to the new one you may choose.
So in this scenario, you've got to share on the 6, for instance, key it up, access reflector 4, A out, and then switch memories back to 1.
You got it. That's exactly right. Question was, if I want to, well, let me go through the sequence. My repeater is linked somewhere. I'll first select memory 2, issue an unlink command. I'm going to be very courteous, and I'm going to announce on the air what I'm going to do, so I don't get surprised with that. Repeater unlinks. Then I want to go down to Reflector 4A. So I'll select memory 6, key the mic, it links, and then I want to talk. I'll go back to memory 1. Does that make sense?
Is it going to say that you unlinked?
Yeah, you'll normally hear an announcement that it's remote system unlinked, linked to Reflector, blah, blah, blah. That'll give you a voice announcement. And also, I think you'll get that scrolling on the data line on your display. So that's helpful as well. All right, so let's go through some of the different scenarios here. If I want to talk, I'm selecting memory 1. If I want to have the repeater tell me what it's linked to, or if it's unlinked, just say the call sign of the repeater, I would select memory 3 and then go back to memory 1 to talk. If I want to select one of the reflectors that I've stored in there, one of my favorites, and you may have 15 or 20 reflectors that you like, just expand your list. And each one of those is for a block, for a repeater module. For example, my next memories 11 through 20 might be for KI4SBA-B, the UHF module. So again here, I'm just going to select one of those memories 4 through 9, key it, issue the linking command, and go back to memory 1. The unlink command, I always have right up near the front. Remember, I'm only changing what's in the UR field. So it's easy when you're creating this programming, copy them and paste them in for a block, and then go back and just change what's in there. Yes, sir?
What is that SBA?
That's just my name for it. I'm just KI4SBA-C ID. Tell me, repeater, tell me. That's my name. You can put anything you want. That's your memory name that shows up.
Okay, so the I command, that's not built into the software?
It's on the 51, it is.
On the first 51?
Yes. Yeah, I'll tell you how to get to that when we get to that part of it. Here, I'm just programming these memories, straight memories, not the DR memories.
So if you have 140.2, okay, you link to one of these, and then somebody else comes in and they start talking on it, they're going out automatically to the reflector also, right?
Yes. If a repeater is linked, your local repeater is linked somewhere, let's say to a reflector, everyone on your local repeater is going out to that reflector where it's linked. They will follow. So if You issue the link to go somewhere, and then you have several people in your area that also want to talk on that. You could have a big round table, one guy in Los Angeles and 3 guys in Chicago. That make sense? What if? If, well,
You get into the war of who's on first.
sure. If, you know, and that's etiquette. That's repeater courtesy. Share a little story with you. The 2 busiest reflectors of no matter what flavor they are in the world are Reflector 1C, 1 Charlie, or 30 Charlie. I'm the administrator for Reflector 30. We had some guys in, I think they were in Chicago, in Wisconsin, and in Florida. They loved to get on and chat with each other. They would get on 30 Charlie with the other 100 repeaters that were also connected to it and have a long QSO. Good for them, with the exception of those 100 repeaters are tied up. So I, being the administrator for Reflector 30, I tried to very politely ask that you guys are welcome to use this reflector anytime, but you might want to consider how many, this is one of the busiest, on any given day, it's either the first or second busiest repeater in the reflector in the world. You might want to think about that, you might want to take this over to a lesser used, a less busy reflector. They were very nice. They said, sure, we'll do that. We hadn't really thought of that. Because I had all of the repeaters in Georgia default to Reflector 30 Charlie. Some guys in one of the towns said, we can't get in a word edgewise. I can't carry on a local QSO because these guys have it tied up. It was just a matter of thinking ahead, thinking what is going on. How I solved that problem was Reflector 30C is still very, very busy. It's still one of the busiest in the world. But we moved the Georgia repeaters to default to 30 Bravo. That's our in-state network. And some have done that in different ways. Or you might want to have not link them by default. We let them link by default so that we have a state network for Skywarn or exercises or whatever, but you can unlink, you're welcome to unlink a local repeater at any time and link it somewhere else. Question?
Could they have also linked all the different repeaters to Chicago repeater and talk to each other that way?
No, only one repeater. You can only link, think of how to say this. A repeater can only be linked to one other repeater. The idea of the reflector is you can do one to many. Before you had linking, which is not an Icom feature, it's a third-party feature developed by Robin Cutshaw, A4RC, that did D+, he did the dongle and the original dongle and DVAP. Icom came out with a version of software they called Multicasting. It was their first attempt at linking. So you had to configure on each repeater a list that if I go to multicast this, I'm linked to all these repeaters, except they all had to be set up alike, and it was a very crude way of accomplishing the linking. Within a very short time after that, the ability to link through a reflector came about, and no one uses that ever again. So that capability is there. Yes, sir? No. No. Many of the repeaters, well, many of the repeaters run a module, a third-party module called Monolink. Monolink was developed by Ken Atkinson in Birmingham, Alabama. Monolink is very useful for a lot of things. One of the things Monolink does is it listens for idle time. And it says you can set a timer for if I'm idle locally for, let's say, 10 minutes, I'm going to unlink it. Also, if I'm idle for 5 minutes on the other repeaters I'm linked to, I'll unlink it. So you can set that. That's a system administrator settable function. Otherwise, the repeater will just stay linked until somebody unlinks it or you get an internet interruption or something. Monolink, that's one of the functions Monolink does. The other, it'll make periodic announcements. You can have a default link. Like I said, our Georgia repeaters, we have at least one module that default links to 30 Bravo. So if someone wants to link somewhere else, they can unlink it, go somewhere else, and if they just don't do anything else, after I think it's 15 minutes of idle time, it'll unlink and default back to 30 Bravo. So that way we've always got it there for the state network if needed, but people are more than welcome to change it.
Just to clarify my thinking on that, the idle time you're referring to is actually input to that repeater, or because as long as it's linked, if anybody's talking where it's linked, you're going to constantly be hearing stuff.
Think about, you can set it if a local, only the people on my repeater, if set that parameter. If it's silent, if nobody locally is using it for that time, or somebody out on the network where it's linked to. Those are two different parameters. Like, for example, I may set remote, I think is the way it's referred to, remote idle for 5 minutes, because someone usually will come on there and that would just be enough to keep it linked. But locally I might say 15 or 20 minutes, just in case someone came in.
The connection between a reflector and the repeater, is that an internet connection?
It is. Question was, is the connection between a repeater and a reflector an internet connection? Yes, it is. It goes over the internet to be able to do that. All right, let's go through a few more. If this is method 2. If you've got one of the, let's say 880s, or even the 2820 will do this, you've got, if you look in the software, the Icom programming software, you'll see your call sign. Remember, UR, your call sign. And you've got, I think, 60 memories. Whoops. 60 memories that you can put your favorite linking command in there. So then if you select that and then scroll through the list, pick the one you want, that's like changing that UR field. So if you've got an 880, an 80 handheld, a 2820, you've got that capability. And that'll give you your 60 favorite locations that you want to program in there to use. And that can be a faster way. And then that way, I don't have to have all those 10 memories. I just set up one with CQ, 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 and then change the UR. So I can save memories that way, not have to program all other 9 or ever how many you're reserving for that repeater. So that's an alternate way. That's why I call that method 2. That's available. I don't think you can do that on 91. Maybe you can. But so I think 91, 92, 80, 880, and 2820. Thank you. We'll do those. So you select the memory location. That changes the UR field. But remember, go back to CQ, CQ, CQ to talk. All right. DR mode. Greatest thing to happen to our radio since the transistor. Unfortunately, it's only available on the latest generation, the 3151, 7100, and the 5100. Those radios. You have, now I'm going to refer to the 51, I think, if our memory serves me correct. I think you have 500 regular memories. You can, well, I don't even program my FMs in there anymore, because I'll show you how to do that. But I will put, I probably have 10 memories programmed. These are the ones my Aries group uses. These are our standard frequencies. So those are my standard FM. Then you've got another 750 that may have increased with a firmware upgrade, DR memories. Now those are different, and let's go through how to use those because it really makes the programming simplified. May cause you to go out and buy a new radio while you're here. I'm sure the vendors will appreciate that. All right, if you hit the DR button, which is hard to see, on the 5100 it's right there. If you're on the on a 31 or 51, this kind of squarish button you see at the bottom, if you press and hold below the blue button, that'll put you in DR mode. And when you're in DR mode, you will see to and from. Boy, I hear radios powering up. You guys are good. All right, so you get to and from. Now, hey, I would. I'm born in Missouri. You got to show me. What is really neat about DR memories is that they are geocoded. What does that mean? It means that for a repeater, it also allows you to store the lat and long, the location of that repeater. That becomes really important when you want to do this function called nearest repeater. Because GPS knows where you are, the memory knows where repeaters are, so a quick little algorithm, it can say, here are the closest repeaters to where you are at that point. Nice feature. Let me see, what am I missing? If you have, we talked about this earlier, if you have the initial ID51, it will do this, but it will not do it for FM repeaters. If you bought the anniversary edition, or you bought the 51 Plus, or you have a 5100, you can not only do nearest repeater and also store FM repeaters in your DR memories. So even if I weren't doing D-Star, I'd get one of these radios and I could find my nearest FM repeaters. And I can update that list. We'll go through that as well. All right.
You said press the DR and come on to from?
Yeah, press and hold it. And then your display ought to say to and from. Oh, yeah. To be able to do nearest repeater, you have to lock on GPS. If you turn on internal GPS in your memory, in your menu system, you'll get a little symbol up there which is like a little satellite. If that's flashing, it's not locked. You don't have GPS lock. Now, there it is right there. Good point. Right there. It's like a little satellite. If that's flashing, you do not have GPS lock. It does not know where you are. If you are inside here and you're powering up for the first time first time that you haven't it won't know where you are. So if that's flashing. Now, once you do get, so you need to go outside and stand for a couple of minutes. Once you have got GPS lock and you come inside, it remembers that last position. So that's helpful. So turn on your radio before you go inside at Hera, let it lock, it'll go steady, and then you'll be good to go. Yes?
So your memories for the regular FM memories, so it doesn't record the geolocation.
Right. Regular memories, you do not store location information. It's just regular memories storing, I mean, you could, like the normal channels. All right? DR mode is, here I'm showing a 51 display. And if you press DR, which right at the bottom part, press and hold, you'll get the to and from. Now, if you press I call it the blue button in the middle, you're going to get several options. One of those options is going to be, and let me go in DR mode, and it'll say one of three things. It'll say repeater list, nearest repeater, or transmit history. Now, if I want nearest repeater function, I'll press the blue button again. Let's go through. I think I've got some screens for this. Here we go. First off, very important thing, I could slap Icom for this. They default to the wrong CQ. It's the local CQ that comes up first time on your radio. You do not want that. You want to change that immediately because you will not get out of your local repeater. It's just like not having a G in repeat 2. So what you want to do is go to select the 2, the upper field, press the blue button, and then you want to select either, you'll probably want to go down where it says Reflector, press the blue button, use Reflector, and select it. So then you get on your display this. Rather than just say CQ, 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 it'll say use Reflector, or someone will say use repeater.
Is that just for the plus?
For?
Is that just for plus?
No, that's all of them.
Not this one.
What?
I got that on there.
Do you have your call sign when you go to press the blue button? Blue button.
When I go in the 2 field, on the DR mode, and push the blue button, I get local CQ, gateway CQ, your call, RX system, TX system.
Stop right there. Select your call sign. Hit the blue button. Does it say use repeater? Select that. You're there. Just hit the, are you on here? Just hit the upper. This is like a rocker switch. It's like a mouse. Well, first off, you're not in DR mode. Oh, you're on dual. Take it out of dual mode. It's easier to do this. Now you're there. So, are you locked? Oh, you're on an FM repeater. Find a D-star repeater. That's a good point. If, for example, you have an FM repeater selected in your DR memory, 2 is not going to show anything. It'll just say from, so you can't go up to 2. There's no need. It's an FM repeater. All right, so that gets you the correct CQ. I don't know how many times someone got a brand new 51 or a 5100 and they're on, and I'm listening on another repeater, they're connected to a reflector, and I'm hearing one conversation and not the other. I know exactly what that problem is. They're on local CQ. There's very few situations where you will use local CQ. So leave it on the use reflector, use repeater CQ. Very important. Why they didn't make that a default puzzles me. All right, we've got that set up. Now, here we are, 2 different displays. I can either select nearest repeater, and if I have lock on GPS, it's going to give me a list of the closest repeaters. It'll tell me how far away they are and what direction on the compass. Huh? Almost what direction? Depending if the geocoding's right.
Most important thing is to say how far.
How far away it is, yeah. So if it's 50 miles away, probably not going to do you much good, right? Okay. So if it's not, if it doesn't give you that list, you probably don't have GPS lock. All right? That's the fast way. Another way is to select repeater list. Once you select repeater list, And again, you're in the from to start. Select repeater list, and then you're going to get, by default, it'll probably give you different areas of the country, like USA, Midwest, Northeast, Southeast, etc. Those are they're almost like banks that are programmed in. If you look in the programming software, you'll see down the left side, there'll be, I think it's like 30 different groups, and that's what you're seeing, and typically they're coded by areas of the country. So then if I select, let's say Southeast, and then I'm going to get a list of cities, and then I can scroll down that list. Now, how do I know also what state they're in? If you look at the very bottom, you're scrolling through the cities, but if you look down at the bottom, it'll show the state and then also the call sign of that repeater. So it gives you just a little bit more information. So I can scroll down where I want, and then I can select that in from. That's the repeater I'm going into. And at that point, I'm talking. So I don't have to, I can select a repeater very quickly without having to worry about and not program one specifically for it. Now, if I want to do something like link to a reflector, two things. One, you're going to have to select it the first time. So I'll go to link to reflector, select reflector, link to reflector, direct input, and then you get that right screen that you set the reflector number and module. Now, Icom only provided for the D+ reflectors. So if you're looking to get a DCS or an XRF, you won't get it from the direct input, but you can program that in using the programming software. Yes. Well, go into the programming software and go into what's called repeater list, and then you can set up some different reflectors in there. Okay, that's because you haven't selected more than one. See, right here I've got several because these are previous ones that I've selected. You say direct input and just have one listed? Yeah. Punch direct input, you get this screen over here, and then you select. Then I'm trying to, you're talking about the basic, is that a basic 51? Bring it up here. I want to answer. Yeah, this is from a 5100. Let me do it on yours. I'll make you part of the class. Good question. We want to answer that. Why did you buy that? No. All right. First off, you got a screen protector and I can't see it. So I go your call sign. I'll leave it. That's fine. I'm going to go your call sign. Now you've got a bunch here.
Where'd you get them?
Those are stored in your programming software.
Okay.
So you can go back and amend that list. So we've answered the question. For the basic 51, you don't get that direct input screen, but you can add that in your list.
Well, how did you do that?
You'll have to do it in your software.
No, how did you do that just now?
Okay. This was a good class. All right, so I'm on 2.
Yeah.
Your call sign.
Yeah.
Oh, here you have direct input.
Direct input, yeah.
Direct input.
A 1.
Now, you can do it manually, enter in the, go to each position. What he's doing, if you go on the basic 51, you get a direct input screen, but then you've got to, scroll positions and then turn it and select it for each letter. And once you've selected that, so see for this, I can go, if I want to change that, come over here, and then I select it, Well, no, that didn't work. The best way to do it is in the software.
Okay. So,
Set it up.
all right, I got another one for you. Let me
Okay.
formulate it.
All right. Don't you love different versions of radios? Yes, sir.
I'm an Amazon person. Am I somewhat still at a disadvantage, or the other side?
You are screwed. No. Shouldn't say it. I'm on the internet. I can say it on the internet. No. Unfortunately, I think both the Icom and the RT system software is only available for Windows. Is Chirp available? Chirp, you can get it in different versions. So that may be a way. It's not as feature rich as the Icom or the RT system software, but it is a way to do it. Yes? Not the Icom or RT systems. It's not available in Linux. Only Windows. Again, Chirp. I'm not sure what you're saying.
The Raspberry Pi is really cute here anytime you want to program anything in Linux.
Well, but you're going to have some application software to be able to do that. Yeah, and I think Chirp will do that. So, yeah.
Not so much on a Raspberry Pi, but what would be better to do is in the Linux environment, running Windows.
Yeah, you use a Windows emulator on it. Yeah, you can do that. Okay. All right, let's try a couple of other things here. Now, remember, just like anything else, you want to go back to the talk display, which is the CQ, CQ, CQ. And if you just rotate, if you've got the two selected and you rotate your knob or the big knob on a 5100, then you can rotate back to that. Also, once you have selected them by that direct input method, they're like a last used. It'll add to your list, so it keeps adding more to that. So all of those are in there. So that will be helpful too. All right. How many of you use, before we leave.
Sorry, on that previous screen, okay, so now you got selected from, and as long as you got use repeater CQ, you leave it on the from when you start talking?
Yes, because that's all the from is doing is selecting what repeater you want to talk through. So you want to change that if you change the repeater.
Clarify this a little bit though. Technically, whether it says from, whether the from is highlighted or to is highlighted at this point doesn't matter, because you're not actually going to make any of the changes. It's just that if you hit the blue button to make changes, if you're in the from, you're going to get repeaters. If you're in the to, then you're going to get those options. That's
Right,
the difference.
that's true.
So theoretically, regardless of which one's highlighted, it'll still come.
Yeah, once you have these set, that's what you're talking on.
I usually only use the two when I'm trying to talk directly to somebody. Call out to them.
As in simplex or local? Okay, yeah, because you can select local CQ, you can select gateway CQ, which I'm not even going to get into today. You'll get lost with that.
One thing I think that would, just as a future reference, that might make it clearer for people, that if you could put a slider show that when you're in CQ, 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 or the local CQ, show the all four.
What are those?
My call, your call,
Right.
on repeater 2, and then show what it is when you're in repeater reflector, then it's easy for them to see the concept of what's happening.
That's true. That's very good.
Because you're going to then see there's nothing in the gateway, there's repeater 2.
Unless you came to this class and you bought a brand new 51 or 5100, you're not going to care. But it's good to know, and that's why I go through this on here, so you kind of see what's happening under the cover. That's a good point. I'll add that. All right. How many of you have a DVAP or a DV Mega, one of those? Those are very handy, right? You carry your D-Star network with you. There are some things that you're going to want to do in the DR memories that is a little bit different for programming those, but it allows you to use the DR memories. When I first got my 51, I was tempted to go back to the regular memories to program my DVAP. And then I went, no, there's got to be a way to do that because this DR mode is so neat. So I did a little digging, and I set up a few. I put those in the group 30, and I labeled that. So when I get repeater list, the last one is simplex/DVAP. And that's where I have these memories. And so these are my, I set up, for example, I've got 2 different DVAPs, a 2 meter and a 440. So these are my frequencies. I don't have to fill in all of this stuff. I don't have to fill in the geocoding, which is out here. I just put in that for, these are my DVAPs that I'm using, or simplex. These are my default simplex frequencies. But I can select them through DR mode. Now the DV Mega is a little different. You either have to, have one for using it and one for issuing the control commands like reboot, restart, halt, switch. So you have to be in, I select DV Mega Control, which puts this in a sense, the UR field. Still, that's my Mega is programmed with that. And then I can use those like halt, restart, switch, those special commands that you get with it. And then I have to change in the from back to DV Mega Use, and then I can select reflectors. And there I can select, I can put in REF, DCS, XRF, all of those. So I can do that very easily. So that's a common question that comes up in using their DVAP or one of these other devices with the DR memories.
When you're using a DVAP, you just pick a frequency out there
Yeah.
that nobody uses or that you would just use for simplex,
Right, right. I like on UHF, I like 441.00 because 446 is kind of considered the national calling frequency for, it's like the 5.2 of UHF. So the paired frequency with that, if it was a repeater, would be 5 megahertz lower. So that's just my favorite. I'm actually using the upper end of the packet band, 145.79, you know, those frequencies, 145.51 through 7.9 is kind of they're digital, but they're kind of the packet frequencies. So I use one of those, and I'm operating simplex, so you know, it's a digital mode in there. You can put it wherever you want. You could put it on 5.2 if you wanted. All right. Hopefully that's going to help you out some with DR mode. Play with it. You'll get used to it, and you'll love it. Now, we're running a little over for this hour, but I want to cover something else. Remember that SD card that we talked about earlier? You can actually store multiple configurations on that. And you don't have to put a 16 gig or 32 gig card in there. You could put a 4 gig card, SD card in here and store a bunch of stuff. Now, you can update the repeater list that comes with the radio is dated. It's probably a 3-year-old list from the factory. It's great to get on immediately, but you want to update it. One of the places that you can go is dstarinfo.com. Go to the download tab, and then you want to pick, if you're using, you're going to do different types of downloads for different models of radios. If you are using one of the earlier models, for example in 92, you're going to just basically download a memory list, your standard memories. But the kicker is you can select it centered around a certain area. So here I can select, I wouldn't select Afghanistan, but that's the default because it's A. But I could select like Southeast U.S. and then I can get that download. And then that's going to create a CSV file, which if you go into your memory, and these are going to update your standard memories, go menu, and then import, and then you will import that CSV file, and then that will load your regular memories. Then you can also save it. If you have the SD card equipped radio, you can save that to the SD card. Now, if you have a one of the newer radios, 3151, 5100, and the only difference in the 51 Standard Edition and Anniversary and Plus is you can also do FM repeaters on your download as well. So, I'm going to select a location, Dayton, Ohio. I want to create a file and fill my memories up with the closest repeaters to Dayton, Ohio. I want to select the type of radio. It will know then how many memories I have. I want, if it is one of them that the 5100, 51A Plus or Anniversary, I will have the option of putting FM repeaters in that as well. Now, for the 5100 here that I've selected, I've got 1,000 standard memories and 1,200 DR memories. So I'm going to find the closest 1,200 repeaters and create a CSV file. Now, if I had the writer of this put in something special for me, empty repeater slots. I'm going to reserve 15 at the end, so he's only going to give me 1,185. So I didn't fill mine because that's where I program my DVAP memories and stuff there, and I'll paste that in. So you can put 0 and it'll put all 1,200 in there. It'll give you a file of 1,200. Also, you select the percentage FM. Now, I use 80% FM. Why wouldn't I make it like 10% FM? Because there are obviously more FM repeaters than there are D-Star repeaters, right? So if I get 80% FM, I'm going to get all of the D-Star repeaters. I'll still have 20%, well, 20% of the 1,200 will be D-Star. So that will be 200, right? Is that right? 120, 240. So I'll have 240 D-Star repeaters. I'll have every repeater, D-Star repeater in my state and surrounding states, filling that up. Yeah, you're on your computer for this, on dstarinfo.com. So I'm going to get 80%, which would be, what is it, 1,200 minus 240, about 1,000 FM. Now, I know in Georgia we have 500 FM repeaters. So I'm going to get all of Georgia FM repeaters plus some of the neighboring states. And I'll get all of the D-Star repeaters in Georgia and some of the neighboring states. So that's a number that works for me. You may want it totally different, but it gives you that flexibility to do that. So it's going to give me a CSV file with, in this particular case, 1,185 in CSV format that I can then import into the radio. Question?
Where does it get the FM repeater information?
Okay. The D-Star information comes from various sources, but it's probably the best D-Star listing out there. D-Star Users is another source. You can go to Repeater Book. You can go to RF Finder. Don't get me started on them. RT Systems gets theirs from D-Star Info. It's updated quarterly. FM, where do they come from? A sharing arrangement was created between this website and Repeater Book. So they have an API which can go in and pull that directly from Repeater Book. So the source of the FM repeaters is Repeater Book. The source of the D-Star repeaters is its own database here on dstarinfo.com. Repeater Book is an awfully good source. None of them are going to be perfect because most of them depend on the different users and system operators to update their information, and nobody is really good at that. So that's probably the best combination you'll get. I won't go into RF Finder.
How much memory is this? If you did just what you did right there on the card, how much
About 4K. That's why I'm saying this CSV file with 1,200 memories is probably about 4K on the card. So I can put a whole boatload of those on there.
you could do that for every state.
Yeah, and that's what I do on my SD card. I think I have an 8 gig in here, which was still overkill. Every new city I go to, I create a file centered around that city. When I get there, I do menu, import, and I've loaded the new repeater list. Yes, when you, if you go in and look at that CSV file, in the first column, it's going to have a number, 1 through 30. And that creates that kind of banks that show up in the groups that when you hit repeater list, USA Southeast, Northeast, that's how it groups those. Okay, behind you. I would always get a class 10. Those are faster and they're a little more expensive, but not much. Well, it's a micro SD in here. It's a standard SD in the 5100 and 7100. I don't care what brand. Look at it and see if it's got the little 10 with the circle. That's usually, it's a faster memory card, and so it's a little more reliable. You have to. That's a very good question. Before you do anything with that SD card, put it in your radio, go menu, and all the way to the end is SD card, format, and let it format it in the radio. The reason it does that is that it sets up a certain 4 or 5 folders. One of those is called settings. If you save the settings of the radio, that saves everything. All your menu settings plus all the regular memories. If you save it as if you do an export or an import, that's only looking for a CSV in the folder called CSV. So if you do this on your computer and it creates a CSV and you take this out and put it in a reader, dump that CSV file in the folder marked CSV. I got to remember the structure. There is one. Yes, you're right. In the CSV folder, so then when you go SD card, and if you load setting, it's looking for an ICF file that's in the settings folder. If you do import, export, and import, it's looking for a CSV file in the CSV folder. But so when you save settings, load or save settings, remember that's an ICF file, that's the Icom format. That is everything in the radio. Everything. Now, question came up. RT Systems also makes some very good programming software. Really good people, and they support their product real well. But you'll pay $25, I think, for each radio that you buy it for. One of the things I would definitely recommend is get this orange cable from RT Systems. It's the RTS 05 cable. Just tell them the orange cable. This can be used with every radio except the 2820, 92, yeah, because it has that proprietary connector. But every other radio, this will work as both a data cable for doing data stuff and programming. So I highly recommend this cable. It's well worth the $25 you pay for it. Good quality cable. Oh, did we? Yeah, we had the coupons for a discount. Really good people to work with. You can do some custom things in that to create some custom memory lists. But again, quarterly, RT Systems gets theirs, the D-Star list from dstarinfo.com. Okay? There we go. There's an example of some of the files as they're listed when I'm looking at those to import. You do want to shorten it. By default, it's going to create a list like this. Well, I put Cincinnati, Dayton, Knoxville in those, but shorten it. I usually put like a date code in the city to know when I did the file. Here's the site you go to, dstarinfo.com. There's a lot of good information there. And you can get, if you just want to find repeaters, nets, reflectors, downloads, maps, all kinds of stuff. And where we're going to post the videos from this and the PowerPoint will be under conferences. All right. Yeah, yeah. I don't do it. You'll meet, if you come by the D-Star booth, you'll meet Ed, W-A-4-Y-I-H. He's the one who keeps up that site. I kind of help every now and then with it. But I give him the credit. All right, let's take another, can we make it only a 5-minute break? Because we want to cover as much as we can in the last hour. And somebody's going to want this radio.
I'm going back again.